Pete Richter coming to you here at Liberty Works Radio Network. I'm in lovely downtown Westminster, Maryland, with my engineer, Miss Jane Doe. And I want some calls out there tonight. I hope these state police call me, some judges call me, and state's attorneys. I want to hear from you guys. Anyway, the number, 410-848-9191. 410-848-9191. And I'm going to start calling this show the other side of the badge, because there's two sides to the badge. I'm going to put my same question out again, and I'm going to start it like this. A fiery horse at the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hardy high o' silver. The Lone Ranger and Tonto ride into Washington, D.C., and proclaim they're going to take on the injustices and the corruption that's taking our country down. The question is, could they raise a posse today? Could the Lone Ranger and Tonto with their silver bullets raise a posse to fight for our country? And a lot of people say they will, but when it comes time to stand up to the plate, it's a different story a lot of times. Well, I'm going to talk about something low, about as low as you can go. Low would be whale droppings. They're at the bottom of the ocean. The bottom of the ocean. Well, I'm going to give you something lower than that. As these judges up in Pennsylvania, here's an article out of Scranton paper, and you've probably all seen it on television. Grieving mom screams at PA judge. She becomes a symbol. Sandy Fonzio confronted this judge, Mark Cavallari. I can't pronounce it right, but anyway, he's a Luzerne County judge. And this is what the judge was doing. Ms. Fonzo had a son, and he committed suicide at the age of 23. But when he was 17 years old, he was sent to this privately owned detention center that gives kickbacks to the judges for putting people in jail. Now, a privately owned prison or detention center should be against the law, and here's why. A hotel, more beds filled, more profit made. Privately owned prison or detention center, more beds filled, more profit made. Well, this judge and another one were taking kickbacks. This Cavallera made $2.8 million sending kids to jail that shouldn't be sent to jail. If they belonged in there 3 months, he'd keep them a year, because they get paid by the taxpayers to keep these kids in jail. And the story is that a millionaire comes to town, talks to town, and to let him build this detention center. Cost him $9 million to build it. He charges the taxpayers $38 million. Then he gets the judges on his side. And anyway, this Miss Fonzo, her son, at the age 17, was a high school athlete, was on a wrestling team, had a chance to get a scholarship to go to college. Instead, this piece of crap judge sends him away for drug paraphernalia. The kid's never been in trouble, clean record, the whole 9 yards. Sends him to this detention center for drug paraphernalia. What the paraphernalia is, I don't know, but it's allowed to be a sandwich bag. And there's another thing, kids, when you're out there driving, you make sure your friends don't have nothing on them, because if they drop it in your car, you're in trouble. And if you're borrowing your grandfather's car, when the kids leave something in your grandfather's car, your grandfather's liable to get in trouble. So anyway, this boy, his whole high school, 12th grade, he's in this detention center. Kind of this weasel judge put him in there for the money. And he never bounced back. The kid never bounced back. Imagine what his family went through. Imagine what this kid went through, that it got to him so bad that he wound up committing suicide. Imagine how agitated this kid must have felt. Here he is, a high school athlete. He's got a chance for a scholarship for wrestling, and this judge puts him in jail. And shouldn't have put him in jail. Ruined the mother's life, the father's life, everybody. And then the kid wound up committing suicide. This judge is lower than that whale you-know-what at the bottom of the ocean. And here's the kicker. He's out on his own recognizance, pending sentencing. Get one of them red light cameras to see if they treat you as fair as they treat this judge. Here he is, a kid committed suicide. He's convicted of racketeering and a $2.8 million kids for cash plot. He's out on his own recog. Unbelievable. Justice for who? Justice for us. That's who it's for. And us ain't us guys down here on the street either. Us is them big shots and these crooked judges. What a shame. Let me give you another one here. You're going to love this. I talked about this once before, but Tapsco River was froze up, and a deer goes through the ice, and he's trapped, and he's going to die. Well, you know, people see it. They're throwing rocks out to break the ice, throwing sticks out to break the ice, and lo and behold, here comes a DNR policeman up there standing on the side watching all this. Well, everybody's waiting for somebody to take action, and here comes two guys, young fellas. They're going to take action. They get an inflatable boat, and they go out to save the deer. Well, this DNR policeman standing there looking at them, telling them, you can't go out there, you don't have life jackets. They said, we do have them. Give us a ticket, do what you want, arrest us, we're going to save the deer. Well, these two fellas go out, and they save the deer's life, and it's all over the news. That here's two good red-blooded American boys going to go out and save a deer. You know, save a deer. Santa Claus has deers. Little kids looking at that deer out there, that might be Dancer or Prancer, one of them to them little kids. So what does the DNR police do? Gives these two guys tickets for being in a lifeboat, a rubber boat without a life jacket. Well, the guy says, I got a life jacket here, and the police wouldn't even look at it. And they wound up in court. So one of the deer rescuers is found guilty. Found guilty for being on a flotation device without a life jacket. So let me put this in perspective for you. You're in 2 foot of water with your 98-year-old grandmother. And she can hardly walk. And you're in 2 foot of water holding her hands. You don't need a life jacket. But if you're two young, big, strong dudes in a flotation device like a boat, in a rowboat or one of these inflatable boats, you got to have a life jacket. Man, that makes sense to me. You got a thing known as the letter of the law, and you got a thing known as the spirit of the law. The letter of the law is what this DNR policeman did. He gave them a ticket because he said they didn't have a flotation device. Spirit of the law is, man, these guys are heroes in the eyes of little kids, and now the police look like bad guys. That was a dumb move as far as I was concerned, but let me tell you, it gets a little bit better. The second fella they give the ticket to, he didn't get his day in court because the cop, the DNR policeman that wrote the ticket out, didn't fill it out right. So they postponed the case. Well, did you ever hear the Constitution? Quick and speedy trial, burden of proof on the accuser. Not in the state of Maryland. Unbelievable. They postponed the case. That judge should have said to the cop, you got the ticket wrong. Well, everything from that point on is wrong. What he's only got right what they want to be right, but what he's got wrong, well, we got to stop and correct that. And that judge should have said, not guilty, case closed. First guy, he had pictures of the flotation device, and they wouldn't let him get his evidence in. See, most people don't go to court. They don't really know what's happening. But the paper says he was unable to successfully introduce his evidence. It was pictures that he had the flotation device. What most people don't know, these judges, these state's attorneys can make any case come out any way they want because they won't let the average guy get in evidence because the average guy doesn't know how to get it in. You got to know how to say it like F. Lee Bailey or one of them big shot lawyers to really get it in. And then you got to have a judge that's honest that lets you do it. And this guy couldn't get his evidence in. Well, that's par for the course. Par for the course of the state of Maryland. They do what they want in these courtrooms. Now, here's the ticket's written wrong, they postpone the case. If the policeman's not there, you should be found not guilty. End of story. Let me tell you what they do on lovely Eastern Shore in Maryland. We had a deputy state's attorney in Centerville, 22 miles over the speed limit, caught by the Maryland State Police and issued a ticket. 22 miles over the speed limit. So if you don't know you're doing 22 miles over the speed limit, there's something wrong. You need to be drug tested or alcohol tested. So the state police gives this deputy state's attorney a ticket for 22 over. Pete Richter gets hold of the information, puts it all over the internet, and calls some big shot talk shows in Baltimore. And I said, he got the ticket. Then I waited because I know what they're going to do. Then I come up with the information, and this is what I said is going to happen. They're going to change the trial date and not tell the police. Then they're going to make it so the sitting judge, the guy that's judge is normally there, is not there. And then they're going to call the policeman's name, and when he don't answer, they're going to say not guilty. Well, guess what happened, ladies and gentlemen? Guess what happened? Exactly what I'm saying. But the regular citizens, they'll find you guilty even when the police is not there. I reported this to the chief judges. It goes in one ear and out the other. But what they'll do on the Eastern Shore, and probably the rest of the state too, is the policeman doesn't show up in court. And that used to be a federal case when I went on a job. If you're not in court, something's wrong, you got a problem. You're going to be in trouble. Well, anyway, the judge will say, anybody wants to plead guilty goes first. Anybody wants to plead guilty with an explanation goes second. Anybody wants to plead not guilty, you go last. Well, what they'll do is the guy that pleads guilty, they'll find him guilty, but they'll reduce the fine. And everybody said, oh, boy, I want to be found guilty, and they'll suspend the points so you don't get the points and all. The last guy in the courtroom is the guy that wants to plead innocent. They postponed the case to make sure the policeman's there. Unbelievable, ladies and gentlemen. Unbelievable. This stuff should not be going on in our courtrooms. So like I tell everybody, your first line of defense for your constitutional rights is you. You. Your second line of defense is the police. The police, it's their job to champion that Constitution and not allow these crooked judges to go after innocent people. I mean, this woman from Pennsylvania, her son committed suicide. And she was all over the news cussing that worm judge out. And just looking at that judge, I guarantee you, when he was a kid, you could smack him in the mouth, take his lunch money from him, and call his mother 40 different rotten names, and he wouldn't have the guts to fight back. But when he's got that power over this kid, sends him to jail, ruins the kid's life, the mother and everybody else for money, and they let him out on his own recog. What a disgrace. Well, anyway, I got some more to talk about when we come back from this little break here. And remember, 410-848-9191, Liberty Works Radio Network. This is the other side of that bag. Pete Richter coming back at you here. We're up at Liberty Works Radio Network, and the number's 410-848-9191. 410-848-9191. And before I start talking about the 73 people killed down in Mexico in 72 hours, I think I'm going to sing a little song for you. And this should have been the national anthem. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me a golden skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. Nobody living can ever stop me, 'cause I go walking that freedom highway. Nobody living can make me turn back. I said this land belongs to you and me. This land is your land, this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. I said this land belongs to you and me. Well, it belongs to us, but to keep it, you got to start fighting back, ladies and gentlemen. And you got to fight for that Constitution. You got to fight that the police are going to do the right things for us. And the same thing with these judges and these state's attorneys. These guys can make a change. They can make a change, especially the cops out there. The cops can really make a change. But how about this Juarez, Mexico? 53 killed in 72 hours, 4 of them cops. So you're getting the police killed down there, you're getting the politicians killed, and why? And the answer is very simple: to profit from the drug money. Most of these killings in Mexico are the cartels, and in this particular town of Juarez, you got the Juarez cartel and the Sinaloa cartel fighting for a bloody war over turf and smuggling routes. And, you know, that's so much money. And there's drugs, it's unbelievable. And the police can't handle it down there. The bosses are corrupt. The court systems are corrupt. If you're a cop down along that border, what are you going to do? Get your family killed because you're going to stand up for the right thing when your boss don't have the courage to do it? They're not, you know, that's one of the problems. You need leadership that's going to charge. It's going to attack. Going to have everything available for the men to fight the battle. And it all starts with the courts and the politicians. You know, I would imagine that a young cop gets down there along that border and he sees what's going on. Over 6,000 metric tons of dope come across that Mexican border every year. How are you going to do that without police or political protection? You just can't do it. And the system in Mexico is a lot worse than it is up here. I've got, if you go to my website, Security Pete for Sheriff, Pete Richter for Sheriff, Security Pete Richter is my nickname, but if you go to Pete Richter for Sheriff and put all that HTTP stuff in the front and end it with a .com, you'll see me singing 4 songs that I wrote about waterman. A waterman's a guy that makes his living on the Chesapeake Bay, you know, clamming and crabbing and fishing. And on this video, you'll see a guy, he's blind, his name's Kurt Milam, he's from Uniontown, West Virginia, and plays mandolin. Well, anyway, Kurt and his wife, they're both retired. They went to Mexico for a vacation, and they got to drive like 2 hours to get back to the airport. Well, the police pulls him over in a line of traffic. He's not on the road by himself, and Kurt's not driving. I said he was blind. His wife can see she's driving. And they're pulled over by the Mexican police, who wants $350 to let him go for speeding through a school zone. What? Ain't no schools there. No school at all. Plus, he's in a line of traffic. Kurt's the only one pulled over. Why? Well, they can see it's a rental car. They were probably warned, you know, or told the Americans are leaving. They got money in their pocket. You know, they're easy picks. So anyway, the moral of that story is that Kurt's wife, Kathy, wouldn't go along with the scheme with the police. And they're kept on the side of the road. They're threatened. They're this, that, and the other. And she held her ground. And finally, she got the police down to like a $25 fine. Give him the money, you let you go. So for $25 for $300, figuring you better get out of here. The guy's liable to plant drugs in your car. You never know what they're liable to do. So she opens her wallet, and the police reaches in and grabs $80, gets in his police car, and rides off into the sunset. So jolly average citizen would say, make a complaint. To who? Like them bosses down there in Mexico don't know this is happening? Talk to these fellas that come up from these South American countries. The game's played that way. You got to bribe everybody in government to get things done, and especially the police. And the second most profitable crime next to drugs is stolen cars and crimes with cars. And I'm gonna tell you about one right now. Baltimore City. 17 police officers charged in broad towing scandal. Well, they're up to about 30-some now. Indicted or going to be fired, but they had a scheme going, and it's nothing new. Now, here's the way the tow trucks are supposed to work. You can call any tow truck you want to haul your car away, but the police can only use certain ones that are licensed and registered with Baltimore City. That's to keep it honest. And when the police calls for a tow truck, he can't call the one he wants. He calls the dispatcher, and the next guy on the list, or the closest one to the accident, gets the call. And the taxpayers, pay for all this. And then, if your car is towed, you got to pay the towing bill, this, that, and the other. But it's all supposed to be on the up and up, except in the illustrious Northeast District in Baltimore City, where they locked all these cops up. And here's what they're doing. They're hooked up with I had a little static going through my head there with his earphones. But anyway, they had a racket going with a towing company. And the police would call the towing company. Now, this towing company's in Baltimore County. They're not licensed, but they're also a body and fender shop. So when the police see an accident where they're going to have to get it fixed, they call this towing company on their cell phones. The towing company shows up, and the police let the people think that, this is legitimate. And look, you're the police. People are going to believe what you say, just like they believe these crooked judges and state's attorneys. But, when you call, when the police says, here's the tow truck, you're not going to question the police. You're going to go along with the program. Well, the next part of this little scheme is this. You tell the people that you're not going to have to pay the deductible now. And you're not going to pay the deductible because the Majestic body and fender place where they're towing your car is going to reimburse you for that money. So you're tickled to death to have these guys fix your car. You're not going to pay the deductible. That could be anywhere from $250 to $500 or more. And the police gets $300. And the cops are so stupid, they took checks. They're taking checks from the guy. Their names on the checks. They're not even good thieves. A good thief would have took the cash maybe, but not take a check with his name on it. And my girl in the back room, they tried to give her a check one time, and they wanted her name. She said, my name's Jane Doe. This is the sheriff up here in this Westminster. And she says, I come in here with cash. I want my cash to go. And simple as that, Jane Doe's my name. Well, the sheriff got so frustrated with her, he just took the money out of the petty cash, give her money, and let her go. But you got to watch these cops. So anyway, they take your car. They give the deductible back to the person whose car is damaged. They give the police $300. One of these cops made over $14,400 sending cars to this particular body and fender shop. And it's so funny how these people are. We got a city councilman, and I won't mention his name, but everybody's going to know who he is. He was related to the Attorney General, state of Maryland. Well, anyway, he's complaining because they got all these cops out of the Northeast District under arrest now. So his constituents want protection. You live in Baltimore City. If you don't have a gun to protect yourself, and you're not 6'5", you got to watch out. So this particular politician's calling up. He wants his people treated right, and we need more police protection. Do something. You got all these cops out of this one district under arrest. So he's complaining about this, with the financing and all. Well, lo and behold, last year Baltimore City was hit with 2 back-to-back blizzards. You're talking 30-some inches of snow in Baltimore City. Things are going to be crippled up. Well, this particular guy with the city council had 2 city dump trucks with the salt and the plow on the front, and his private community, not the city streets, but his private community plowing snow. Now tell me the taxpayers should be paying for his private community to be shoveled out? Baloney. Nothing ever happened with that. Now he's complaining about the police. So it's always the same story. But I'm going to get to a part here that you'll really like. There's a lady named Paula Pertani, and she's with the tow truck people with that are licensed, that have the medallion to tow for Baltimore City Police. So anyway, she's at Biddle and Harford Avenue. And I used to work around there years ago, and there was a Virginia Donut right below that on Asquith Street. Asquith and Harford Avenue come together, but right there between Chase and Biddle on Asquith Street was the Virginia Donut. And if Mo's down there in Florida, listen, Joe Yeagley used to work at Virginia Donut. But anyway, there's an accident at Biddle and Harford Avenue. And the police has got one of these majestic tow trucks out there handling it. Well, this lady, Pertani, she goes up to the cop, says, "What you're doing's illegal. That guy's not allowed to tow that car. You got to call the licensed, tow trucks that the city hires." Well, one thing leads to another. He locks her up. He locks her up for telling him he's violating the law. She spent 8 hours in central booking before being released without being charged. Now, there's a woman, 50 years old, has never been in trouble. And if you ever go to this central booking in Baltimore, down at Penitentiary, you don't want anybody in your family in there. It's not a nice place to be. Imagine this woman did nothing wrong but point out to the cop that he's violating the law. He locks her up, puts her in jail for 8 hours, and then they don't even charge her. Unbelievable. Don't even charge the woman. Now, in my day, you put your hands on somebody, you better lock them up, and the judge is the one that lets them go. But not in Baltimore City anymore. In the state of Maryland, I just can't believe what's going on. But anyway, it's about time for another break. Get a hot dog, get some potato chips, and get a Coca-Cola, and come on back, and we'll talk about the other side of this badge. Pete Richter, Liberty Works Radio Network, 410-848-9191. Pete Richter, the old retired footman cop, coming back to you up here at Liberty Works Radio Network at 410-848-9191. And right before the break, and I hope you got some popcorn to eat out there, guys, I was talking about Miss Paula Pertani, who is involved with the tow trucks in Baltimore City, and she's with the legal tow trucks that the city hires to haul away cars in accidents and obstructing traffic and all, and how she was arrested for pointing out to a police officer, and his name is Melendez. Officer Melendez must think he's in Mexico, because that's how they treat people down there. I related that story to my man Kurt. But she reported it, made a complaint to the internal investigation, and this is what you got to do. Look, you got to protect yourself out there, people. You got to protect yourself, and the only protection that you have is this video camera. And even with the video camera, these judges and state's attorneys do what they want. But at least you got some evidence to back up what you're saying. Every citizen should have a video camera to video your interactions with the police. And especially if you're not doing anything wrong. I mean, if you're wrong, take the ticket and accept it and thank the cop for doing his job. But when you got one of these knuckleheads out here, these bullies with badges, you better get yourself a video camera. And even with a video camera, these judges, that you don't know what they're liable to do. But Miss Protani, Protani's her name, Protani. She filed a complaint with the Internal Investigation Division of Baltimore City, and I tell you what, that's another outfit. You wouldn't believe those guys if you knew the other side of the badge with them. They're all political. All this going on, they're going to pick and choose who they go after. That's always been the case. But anyway, you make complaints. You got to document things. You see something going on, you document it. You make a point to put the date, the time, if was there any witnesses around. But that video camera is a real good one. And matter of fact, down where I live, they got a forum called, one word, Ken Island Online. Ken Island Online. You go to that forum, and what I've been doing is videoing myself on the show and putting it on YouTube and posting them on this Ken Island Online. Well, one of my videos is one of the shows I did here, is about the Maryland State Police threatening to shoot me. Well, when I made the official complaint, when it happened, the first thing I did when I got to my car, I got my video camera on, narrated what happened, and went directly to the Maryland State Police and talked to a Sergeant Rounds while my video camera was rolling. And I made my complaint on video, so I've got a transcript of that. Also videoed a complaint made to a Sergeant Christy Meekin about a senator who, like Nazi Germany, sent the Maryland State Police after my business because I was putting in complaints about corruption, and I got that on video. So they can say what they want. I've got the evidence, and somewhere down the line, I'm going to get justice. And justice is a hard thing to get. I've talked on this show about my buddy Bobby Berger. Bobby Berger put blackface on while he was off duty and did an Al Jolson show. He's been doing it for 30-some years now, and his last show's coming up. And the police department fired Bobby for putting blackface on and doing an Al Jolson show. And when Bobby does a show, a lot of times it's for charity for the St. Jude's Children's Hospital. They fired him. It took him 11 years to get to the Supreme Court to get justice. But when you get there, you better have your ducks in a row because the Supreme Court knows what's going on in this country. It's not a secret. We're not the only ones that know what's going on. They all know it. But anyway, this Paula Protani, she'll have a good lawsuit case. And you can't just lock people up and let them go. You got to lock them up. The judge lets them go. And that's the only way you keep the corruption out of there, because the police can lock you up for anything. You don't have to do nothing. So they'll let you go if you comply to whatever they want you to comply to. And that's not the way it's supposed to be. Well, another one in Baltimore City, for like 11 years, they arrested 10,000 people a year illegally. And then they get them to sign a piece of paper that they're not going to sue and let them go without being charged. There's a big class action suit on that one. Now, how can these bosses, all these guys with educations and diplomas that fill up their walls, not know this fundamental procedures of the law and police work? The answer is they're not police, they're politicians. That's how they got the job. They don't want a good police to be the head guy. He's liable to lock up some big shot's friend that's in the drug business or dealing with these bad cars like this Majestic. And the heads are going to roll with this Majestic because there's people in the background on this Majestic that I know about that the newspapers haven't printed yet. And if the FBI is involved, they know exactly who I'm talking about. And they know exactly what this guy does. And he's tied in with the drug dealers and everybody else. So we'll file this case, and we'll see what happens. But, you got to stand up for your rights, and you got to make complaints. And the problem is with the cops, when they're wrong, who do you complain to? The answer is the cops. So sure, they'll go after some guys and burn them. Other guys, they don't. You know, it's not a level playing field. And it's always been that way. It's always been that way. We used to call them the fair-haired boys. Never hit the streets. Never made lockups. They're the ones that got promoted. I'll tell you a guy named Eddie Malecki. He was the most decorated policeman in Baltimore City. I don't know if he still is or not. But Eddie Malecki started out in the Western District. He come over to Eastern. And that's where I met him. And at one time we had the same post but on different shifts. And came a point one time where Eddie gave himself up as a hostage to get a female hostage let go. And he disarmed the bad guy, took the bad guy's gun and locked him up. Well, there came a point, probably the early 70s, guys like me knew it was over with by then. And Eddie Malecki said, take his job and shove it, like that country music song. And he left the police department. A guy like Eddie Malecki would never get anywhere because he knows where the bad guys are and he knew how to go get them. And that's not what it's all about. It's about something entirely different, and it's always politics involved. Well, 72 killed down here in Juarez is unbelievable. But look, you got a headache? Let me tell you where to go get all the free drugs you want. The state of Florida. Federal agents raided doctors' offices across South Florida on Wednesday in a sweep aimed at what authorities say are operations that illegally deal prescription pain pills. Can you believe this? The doctors now are giving out pain pills. They always did, but the state of Florida gets more pain pills than the rest of the country. They had, here's a guy, Vincent, man, I can't even say these Spanish names, Vincent Coliangialio, whatever it is, of Davie, Florida. He's got over 1,600 websites selling these, trying to draw people in to buy these drugs, and he sold more than $22 million of prescription drugs since 2008. Now, the money in this drugs is overwhelming. As long as drugs are illegal, you're not going to stop the problem. Because when the profit is there, the bad guys, the sharpies, are going to get their hands on it. And you're not going to stop it as long as it's illegal and there's a profit to be made. And I feel so sorry for them people in Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas live along that border. I mean, they're cutting your head off. How violent are these people? How violent are they? And it's a shame that it's that way. And if you really look at the scheme of things, what's going on over there in Egypt, the Middle East, and that North Africa area, same thing's going on in this country, but with not the severity. Not the severity. Gaddafi put innocent people in jail. We got the judge up there ruining kids' lives, putting them in jail for profit. You got the police over there beating people up, hitting them in the head with baseball bats. You got the same thing here. Rodney King's a prime example of that. The military, the military, they take an oath to the Constitution, not to the politicians, to the Constitution. And I give them two Libyan fighter pilots credit. Gaddafi says, go out and bomb the people. They said, okay. They took the planes to Malta, and them planes are millions of dollars. So they took two fighter jets to Malta, and they refused to bomb their own people. But then these guys better be single, because I bet you they go after their family. They got wife and kids, and that's what they'll do. So stand up for your constitutional rights in this country. It's not as bad here as these other countries, but it's heading that way. You got to stand up for these injustices. You got to make complaints to your politicians. If they don't do the right thing, you got to vote them out. But boy, is that hard to do with this system we got. You follow the money, that's who wins the election. Not the best guy gets the job. This politics is an art all by itself. It don't have nothing to do with who the best guy is. It's about, getting your man in office. And I was watching Johnson the other night on television, the old President Johnson. That guy had some guts with that civil rights. You know, that was civil rights for blacks in the South years ago wasn't a thing to do. It was a cultural thing. Plus, for 100 years, the government told you that blacks weren't people. But Johnson did the right thing. And God bless President Johnson for giving the black people their rights and helping them along with Martin Luther King. Now it's gospel time. I'm going to grab my flat-top guitar here. And I'm going to do I don't know if it's a kid's song or not. But this is a gospel song, and it's an old one, and everybody knows this song, including Jane Doe back here, and it kind of goes like this. I got a home in glory land that outshines the sun. I got a home in glory land that outshines the sun. I got a home in glory land that outshines the sun, away beyond the blue. Do Lord, do remember me. Do Lord, do remember me. Do Lord, do remember me, away beyond the blue. I love my Jesus, you'll love him too. I love my Jesus, you'll love him too. I love my Jesus, you'll love him too. Way beyond the blue. When I'm in trouble, do Lord remember me. When I'm in trouble, do Lord remember me. When I'm in trouble, do Lord remember me. Way beyond the blue. Do Lord, do remember me. Do Lord, oh do remember me. Do remember me, way beyond the blue. I got a home in glory land, you got one too. I got a home in glory land, you got one too. I got a home in glory land, you got one too. Way beyond the blue. Do Lordy, do remember me. Do Lordy, do remember me. Do Lordy, do remember me. Way beyond the blue. The Constitution's the law. End of story. Stand up for your constitutional rights. Don't let these cops, these politicians, these state's attorneys push you around and take your rights from you. Stand up and be counted. End of story. And if that's not politically correct, I don't really care. And these shows are unrehearsed, and I'm no professional. I'm just like you guys out there. When I was a kid, we sat on the marble steps in East Baltimore and learned what was going on by people walking up and down the street. Liberty Works Radio Network. See you next week. Pete signing off.